箸やアッシなどの木材をろくろに取り付け、コップやお椀を削っています。床に落ちている木の芯部は子供たちがコマを作るのに使うのかもしれません。ところでこの問い
two. Wow.
海苔はあいにく切れちまってな。切れたラーメンに海苔が乗っかってないなんてありえねえだろ。
I guess I have to learn Japanese. This has been a long time coming, and you'd have thought that wanting to go to the country for so long, I would have at least tried to learn already. And as it turns out, I did. I've had around 3 concerted efforts with the language to various levels of success. At secondary, when I first had the idea of moving, at university when I took a free course, and finally now during the process of applying and moving. I think 2 major things halted me. First was, inspiration. I didn't have a clear, confirmed goal in mind, which led to a lack of motivation and a poor effort to study things like grammar, which are difficult, and a focus on vocabulary, which is purely a numbers game. This current endeavour with the language has resulted in some of my clearest understanding to date, where I can now string together basic sentences at long last. So, hajimemashou ka? Grammar. This is the biggest sticking point for me currently in terms of language acquisition. Japanese grammar is not similar to that of English. One of the fundamental differences is the position of the verb within a sentence. To truly simplify this, let's look at an example sentence in both languages. In English I might say, I eat the apple. In Japanese this would become, watashi wa ringo o taberu. You can see here how the noun, apple or ringo, is in different places in the sentence. This simple shift in structure of the sentence has caused me no end of difficulties. Now I have moved beyond such a simple hurdle, but it can be a daunting task to fundamentally rewire your brain to do something that is usually second nature, such as speak. To follow on from this example, let's conjugate the verb to show how Japanese is again different. In English I might say, I am eating the apple. Notice how I have added the new verb here, am, to help me describe an ongoing action. To complicate this further, most English speakers would contract am and attach it to I to say, I'm eating the apple. In Japanese, the ongoing action would be, watashi wa ringo o tabeteru. Verbs in Japanese seem to actually have fairly standardized conjugation rules that could be easy enough to follow if you become familiar. I'm hoping this will eventually become more natural for me as I go through my learning journey. To further add to this, the sentence can completely drop watashi wa if it is clear who I am speaking about, so it instead becomes ringo o tabeteru. All of this is to say that actually the language can be fairly efficient. It's just that my brain is hardwired to understand things in a completely different way. Another challenge here is that Japanese has 2 clear registers in which one can speak: casual, the dictionary form, or polite, which brings with it more conjugations. Our earlier example of eating an apple would become ringo o tabeteimasu, and other words may change more drastically depending on the context. The way that a verb conjugates depends on whether it is an ichidan verb, 1 step, or a godan verb, 5 step. Ichidan verbs are nice and simple, like taberu, meaning to eat. This is an ichidan verb, meaning we only have to do one thing to change it into its polite form, which is remove the ru and add the mas. So taberu becomes tabemasu. These verbs are nice and easy. The other verbs, godan verbs, require us to move across the 5 vowel sounds. So with nomu, we would have to transform the final syllable mu to become mi before we can attach our mas. Nomu becomes nomimasu, to drink. The real kicker for this rule is that some verbs end in ru, but are themselves godan verbs. So with a word like shiru, we can't just remove the ru and add mas, we have to change the ru into ri and then add the mas for shirimasu. Needless to say, it has confused me at nearly every step of learning. To those of you who may know Japanese, some of my pronunciations may sound off to you, and that is for one very basic reason: pitch accent. While learning everything else from vocabulary to grammar and writing to speaking, pitch accent has fallen by the wayside. An example of what pitch accent is comes in 2 words: bridge and chopsticks. Two words completely unrelated in English, but in Japanese both can be written like this. The difference here is that each word, despite being spelt exactly the same, is pronounced with a different pitch placed on syllables in the word. Hashi means bridge, and hashi means chopsticks. Confusing to an outsider, perfectly natural to a native speaker. Suppose the best comparable example in English would be words like bow and bow. Exact same spellings, but pronounced differently to one another. So I guess I'll keep on learning and focus on mastering grammar and vocabulary, perhaps throw in some pitch accent, and then I'll be a master. Wait. What was that?
Kanji.
Time for a short history lesson on kanji. See, early in Japan's history, they had many dealings with mainland East Asia, which was focused largely on the Middle Kingdom, today known as China. China had a unique writing system, which was originally pictographic, meaning their written words represented images. Over time, China reformed their writing system and it became logographic, meaning each symbol could represent the meaning of a word. In the 5th century AD, Japan became familiar with this writing system and began to apply it to their own language, writing a history of the islands in the newly acquired logographs. The problem was that Chinese words did not conjugate as Japanese words do, and as such the writing system was inefficient for representing Japanese words. Instead, a new writing system emerged whereby Japanese people would use Chinese characters to represent sounds instead of meanings, which is where we find the origins of the hiragana and katakana writing systems. Hiragana became popular with women, and as such was delegated to their writings for much of Japanese history. But kanji remains today an incredibly dense system of writing that even the most dedicated may be defeated by.
If kanji seems difficult due to the complexity of some of the symbols, I am here to tell you that you are wrong. Kanji is difficult because of the multiple readings of the same kanji. I mean, what is this? Going forward, I'm hoping to master all aspects of the language, but I have no doubt this will become easier once I arrive.